Assalamu alaikum YouTube viewers. The topic of today's video is computational chemistry. So in this video I am going to describe what is computational chemistry, the advantages, the disadvantages, and at last I am going to describe the Z matrix, and then I am going to describe the Gaussian software. Okay, so I'll cover all of this topic in this video. So moving on towards our first slides. So first slide says the Nobel recognition of computational chemistry. So first of all, we are going to study the names of the scientists who made a great contribution in the computational chemistry. So first of all, our first scientist was the Walter Cohen for his development of the density functional theory, and John People developed the computational methods in quantum chemistry. So they got Nobel Prize in 1998 for their work. Okay, in 2013, Martin Karplus, Michael Levitt, and Ari Warshel have been awarded Nobel Prize in chemistry for development of computer-based method to model complex systems. So these three scientists were awarded Nobel Prize in 2013. So the next thing we have is the definition of the computational chemistry. So actually what really is the computational chemistry? The computational chemistry is a branch of chemistry, okay? It is actually a branch of chemistry that uses the computer stimulation to assist in solving chemical problems. So what we use the computer software to solve the chemical problems, okay? It uses the methods of theoretical chemistry, okay? It is the method of theoretical chemistry incorporated into computer programs. In computational chemistry, we use different computer softwares. The computer softwares are based on the theoretical chemistry, okay? So to calculate the structures and properties of molecules, groups of molecules, and solids, and using those software, what we do, we calculate the structures, we calculate the properties of molecules and groups of molecules and solids. So if I say this in short form, I can say that the computational chemistry is a branch of chemistry in which we use computer softwares, okay? The computer softwares which are based on theoretical chemistry, in which we use computer softwares that are based on theoretical chemistry to calculate the structures and properties of the molecule, okay? We use computer to calculate the structure and properties of the molecules. So the next thing what we have here are the advantages of computational chemistry. So actually the calculations are easy to perform. Using the computational chemistry, the calculations are easy to perform, calculations are becoming less costly, okay? And the next advantage is calculation can be performed on any system. On any system means that the calculations can be performed on a system that doesn't exist in reality, okay? So using the computational chemistry, we can perform the calculations on the system that does not exist experimentally, okay? And the fourth point is calculations are safe. Since the calculations are performed on a computer, okay, the calculations are performed on a computer, so there is no environmental hazard, there is no dangers of laboratory, the danger of the laboratory, the danger of the chemicals, the danger of handling the chemicals, etc. Okay, so calculations are safe, whereas many experiments have intrinsic danger associated with them. So if we perform the experiment in laboratories, as you know that performing experiment in laboratories have a lot of danger things involved, like using the dangerous acids and etc. Whereas if I talk about the computational chemistry, in computational chemistry everything is performed on a computer, nothing is performed in a lab, okay? I can say that the computational chemistry is safe as compared to the experimental chemistry, okay? So the next thing what we have here is explain and rationalize unknown chemistry, explore new or unknown chemistry. So using the computational chemistry, we can explain and rationalize known chemistry, and we can explore new or unknown chemistry, okay? So the next thing I'm going to describe are the disadvantages of computational chemistry. So actually the computational chemistry can be very expensive in terms of amount of time required, okay? Actually for a lot of reactions, for a lot of systems, the calculations take a lot of time, okay? For a lot of systems the calculation takes a lot of time, so I can say that it can be very expensive in terms of time required. Or calculations can be performed on any system, even those that doesn't exist. So calculations, they can be performed on any system, okay? If the system doesn't even exist in reality, then the computational chemistry can perform calculation on those systems. So it is a disadvantage that we can perform calculations on the system that doesn't even exist, okay? So the next thing is theoretical model, okay? So I'm going to describe the theoretical model on which whole of the computational chemistry is based. So the theoretical model is the theoretical foundation for the computational chemistry is the time independent Schrodinger wave equation. So the computational chemistry is actually based on the time independent Schrodinger wave equation that says H psi is equal to E psi. So this is the form of the time independent Schrodinger wave equation, where psi is the wave function. It is a function of the position of all the fundamental particles, electrons and nuclei in the system, okay? So psi is what? So what is psi? Psi is actually a wave function, and H here is a Hamiltonian operator. It is an operator associated with observable energy, okay? As you can see here, H is an operator that is being applied on psi that gives an answer E multiplied by psi. So this is my time independent Schrodinger wave equation, where this one is psi, this is Hamiltonian operator, E is my total energy, and this psi is again another psi. The wave equation is the postulate of quantum mechanics. So actually this wave equation is actually the postulate of quantum mechanics. And the next thing we have is the Hamiltonian operator. As you know, the Hamiltonian operator H is an operator, and it contains the terms of energy. Okay, it contains the terms of kinetic energy and potential energy. Here T is the kinetic energy and V is the potential energy, and H is my Hamiltonian operator. So Hamiltonian operator is equal to kinetic energy plus potential energy. Okay, so kinetic energy, the T is the operator for kinetic energy. So kinetic energy operator is equal to kinetic energy of electron plus kinetic energy of nucleus. Okay, so this is the formula of the operator for kinetic energy of electron, and this is the formula of the operator for kinetic energy of the nucleus. Okay, so sum of both of these kinetic energies gives the total kinetic energy. Okay, and the Hamiltonian operator is equal to total kinetic energy plus total potential energy. Okay, where this del squared is known as the Laplacian operator. Okay, and it has a value of curly square over curly x square plus curly square over curly y square plus curly square over curly z square. Okay, so this is the value of del squared. Okay, so the next thing what we have here is the potential energy. So now I'm going to describe the potential energy operator. As in the previous slide I have described the kinetic energy operator, and now I'm going to describe the potential energy operator. The potential energy operator is equal to the potential energy of due to the nuclear repulsion, and the potential energy due to nuclear electron interaction, and the potential energy due to electron repulsion. So the potential energy due to nuclear repulsion term is given by this formula. Okay, so this is the formula for the potential energy term for nuclear repulsion, and for nuclear electron attraction the potential energy is this. Okay, and similarly for electron repulsion term the potential energy operator has this value. Okay, so as you can see here that negative is used here in nuclear electron attraction. So this was the time independent Schrodinger wave equation on which the computational chemistry is based. So the second thing, besides the time independent Schrodinger wave equation, our computational chemistry is also based on the Born-Oppenheimer approximation. Okay, so what is Born-Oppenheimer approximation? The Born-Oppenheimer approximation is actually the assumption that the electronic motion and the nuclear motion, okay, the motion of the electron and the motion of the nucleus in a molecule can be separated. Okay, so the Born-Oppenheimer approximation is that the electronic motion and the nuclear motion can be separated. Okay, so it leads to a molecular wave function in terms of electron position and nuclear position. So let me just describe it from the equation. Okay, so mathematically the Born-Oppenheimer approximation is written as psi of a molecule is equal to psi of nucleus and psi of electrons. So I can say that I can divide psi molecule, the wave function of the molecule, into the wave function of the nucleus multiplied by the wave function of the electron. So I can divide the psi of molecule into psi of nucleus and psi of electron. So this is my Born-Oppenheimer approximation. Okay, so why I can divide? So how can I divide the psi of the molecule, the wave function of the molecule, into the wave function of the nucleus and the wave function of electron? We can divide it because the nuclei are much heavier than the electrons. Okay, we can divide it on the basis of the fact that the nuclei are much heavier than the electron and therefore travel much slowly. Okay, so if they travel much slowly, if these nuclei travel much slowly, then they have a negligible kinetic energy. Okay, so the nuclei must have a negligible kinetic energy. And the next point is the nuclear wave function. Okay, the nuclear wave function, if I talk about the wave function of the nucleus, the nuclear wave function depends upon the nuclear position. Okay, since as you know that in the previous point we have just described that the nuclei motion is much slower as compared to electron, so the whole of the nuclear wave function should depend upon the nuclear position. Okay, but not upon the velocity. Okay, so it should not depend upon the nuclear velocity because nuclei are much slower as compared to the electronic motion. Okay, so I can say that the nuclear wave function depends only on the position and not on the velocity. Okay, that is, the nuclear motion is so much slower than the electronic motion that it can be considered fixed. Okay, so I can say that the nuclear motion is so much slower than the electronic motion that it can be considered as fixed. Okay, that the nucleus can be considered as fixed. Okay, so this leads to our general equation of Born-Oppenheimer approximation that says the psi of the molecule can be divided into psi of nucleus and psi of electron. Okay, so this was an other approximation on which our computational chemistry is based. So our computational chemistry is based upon the time independent Schrodinger wave equation and also on the Born-Oppenheimer approximation. Okay, so in so far we have focused mainly on obtaining the total energy of the system. Okay, so in the previous slide so far we have focused only on obtaining the total energy of our system, but many chemical properties can be obtained from the derivatives of the energy. Okay, many chemical properties can be obtained from the derivatives of energy with respect to some external parameter, and these external parameters may include the geometric parameters like bond length, bond angle, etc., and external magnetic field and the external electric field. Okay, so using these external parameters, the geometric parameter, the external electric field, the external magnetic field, using these external parameter, okay, with respect to energy, I can describe other chemical properties also. Okay, so what we have here, that the computable properties, many molecular properties can be computed. So using the computational chemistry, we can compute a lot of computable properties like bond energies. We can calculate the bond energies, reaction energies, structure of ground, excited and transition state. We can calculate the atomic charges and electrostatic potential, vibrational frequencies. We can calculate the transition energies, and we can calculate NMR chemical shift, dipole moments, polarizabilities, hyperpolarizabilities, reaction pathways, and mechanism. All of these things we can compute using the computational chemistry. Okay, so the next thing we have here is the molecular structure. Okay, the first thing most chemists think about when they hear the name of a compound is the structure. Okay, so in computational chemistry, how a structure is represented. Okay, in our computational chemistry, a structure is represented using 3 Cartesian coordinates. Okay, for example, if I talk about methane, methane has a carbon atom at the center and hydrogen atoms around it. Okay, this is a tetrahedral arrangement, and this methane can be described by 3 Cartesian coordinates just like this. Okay, so in case of computational chemistry, the software use the 3 Cartesian coordinate system to describe the structure of a molecule. Okay, so this is the visual illustration of the methane, whereas this is the illustration of how a software interprets a molecule. Okay, so a software interprets a molecule according to the 3 Cartesian coordinates, or it can use the Z matrix. So what is Z matrix? First of all, you need to know what is Z matrix. In chemistry, the Z matrix is a way to represent a system built of atoms. Okay, so in chemistry, the Z matrix is just a way to represent a system of atoms. Okay, so a Z matrix is also known as internal coordinate representation. Okay, and it provides a description of each atom in a molecule in terms of its atomic number, the bond length, the bond angle, and dihedral angle, the so-called the internal coordinates. Okay, so Z matrix is just a way of representing a molecule, just a way of representing the different number of atoms in a molecule. Okay, so using the Z matrix, we can provide a description of each atom. We can provide the description of each atom in a molecule. So how can we provide the description? We can provide the description in terms of its atomic number. We can describe an atom in terms of its atomic number, in terms of its bond length, in terms of its bond angle, and dihedral angles. So these are called the internal coordinates. The Z matrix can describe different atoms in a molecule in terms of the atomic number, in terms of the bond length, in terms of the bond angle, and in terms of the dihedral angle. So these 4 things are called the internal coordinates. So I can say that the Z matrix can represent a system in terms of its internal coordinates. Okay, so moving back. So this line represents the distance of atom, this line represents the angle between the atoms, and this line represents the dihedral angle. Okay, so this is a form of representing the Z matrix. Okay, so the next thing what we have here is this is the same Z matrix representation of the methane molecule. Okay, so moving on. So this is the general interface of a Gaussian software. You know about the Gaussian software. If you have any link with the computational chemistry, you should know that a Gaussian is a software used in the computational chemistry. Okay, so Gaussian software, the main interface of the Gaussian software is just like this. Okay, so let me explain this main interface. The first line here, okay, the first line here is known as the shared processor. The second line here is called checkpoint file. The third line is called the root card. The fourth line is the title, and the fifth line is the charge and multiplicity. Okay, so I'm going to describe all of this in the next slide. So first of all, link 0 commands. Set up memory limits line starts with %. Okay, so this is our first line that starts with %. Okay, and this line actually sets up the memory limits. Okay, and the second line is the root selection. Okay, root selection specifies the details of the calculation. It can be of multiple lines with max of 80 characters, and each line in the root selection must start with a hash. Okay, as you can see here that this line that is starting with hash, okay, this line that is starting with hash is our root card. Okay, so root selection. Then the next blank line tells us that program root selection is done. Program root section is done. And the next thing we have is the title. So as you can see here, here this is my title. Okay, this is my title. And the next thing we have is the charge and multiplicity. As you can see here, that here is the 0, 1 charge and multiplicity. The next thing we have is the molecular geometry, provides the atomic coordinates Cartesian or Z matrix. So here the my atom is represented in the form of Z matrix, or it is represented in the form of Cartesian system. Let me take you back. So here, as you can see, that this is my Cartesian system. This is my way of representing the methane in terms of Cartesian system, and this is my way of representing the methane in terms of Z matrix. Okay, so in Gaussian software, here this water molecule is represented in terms of Cartesian system, but you can also describe it in terms of the Z matrix. Okay. So the next thing we have is blank line tells the program input file is done. The next thing, the last line is the black line that represents, that tells us that our input file is done. Okay, so this is our Gaussian interface. So the next thing that we have is the root card, root line. The root line contains the following information. Okay, so here the root section. Okay, here the root section. If I talk about the root section, the root card or root line, it contains the property to be calculated, like energy, optimization frequency, UV, NMR scan, etc. Okay, so the root card actually contains the property that we want to calculate. Okay, and then it also contains the functional, like theory, like on basis of which we are going to calculate it, like theory, the DFT theory, Hartree, and the next thing is it also contains basis set. It also contains the solvation information, solvent to be used, and it also contains the other parameters like SCF, tightness, convergence criterion, etc. Okay, so that was all for today's video. So in this video I have described what is computational chemistry, the basis, the theoretical model of the computational chemistry, and the advantages and disadvantages of the computational chemistry, and at the end I have also described the Gaussian, the interface of the Gaussian software. Okay, so that was all for today's video. Do not forget to like the video and subscribe the channel. Inshallah, see you in the next video.